Hey, y'all. Welcome to the TikTok Take with Doug Padgett. Really glad to have you listening to the podcast today. My guest is Gareth Higgins. Gareth does a number of things in the world, including helping to organize, implement, give breath and life to Movies and Meaning. It's an event in Albuquerque in April, the 27th to the 30th of 2017. It's their third time doing this event. I've wanted to go the last two times. I haven't been able to, but I will be there this year. I want to invite you to join into the goodness of Movies and Meaning. You're going to hear this in the conversation with Gareth. It's a film festival, but really more than that. I love the way they describe it. They describe it as a place where people dream and imagine about a more beautiful world, and you do that through film. So whether you're into film, whether you understand film, or as we talk about in the interview, if you're someone who feels like, I don't know all that true filmy stuff that film people know, doesn't make any difference. This event would be for you. Join me there. It's going to be a great time. If nothing else, us in Albuquerque, the listeners of this podcast together in Albuquerque, it's the greatest place in the world. It's going to be fantastic. It's only $189. Register now. I think there's probably a place when you register to say where you heard about it. Tell them you heard about it here on the podcast. But I'd love to see you there. I think it's going to be a fantastic event and really want to encourage you to be there. So here's my conversation with Gareth Higgins. Gareth Higgins. Gareth is I've referred to you in this as the producer of the event. Is that a fair phrase?
I think the event producer would be disappointed to hear that, but maybe he's not listening. So we can pretend I'm the producer. Let's just call me the guy behind. Tyler McCabe is the producer.
Yeah. What does this? What does this Tyler do that you?
All the stuff I don't want to do
that you don't do.
All the stuff I don't want to do that he's better at.
All right. Okay. So Gareth, tell us about this event called Movies and Meaning. I've been trying to get to for 3 years, or for two previous episodes. Yeah. I'm going to go this year. And I'm thrilled about that. So thank you for making that possible for the rest of us to have an event like this. And I'm willing to go because I trust you and I know some other people that are going to be there. And I go to a lot of movies. Maybe you know this. I see a movie almost every Monday night with a group of friends. And I think a lot about movies. Right over my shoulder back there is, am I moving my camera? Back there is a movie, a poster from the movie Billy Jack from 1972 that changed my life.
You're an aficionado?
I am an aficionado of that one. So I like movies a lot, and I like movie producers, and I like how people think in movies. Sure. Now, I really like TV. TV is my first love. But movies are a great little weekend. But movies are my true love, or television is my true love. But movies are powerful and great and everything. What about people who don't like movies or don't think about movies or like movies, but they go once a year because they think they're too expensive and they don't know movies and they don't know all the movie thing? When they hear Movies and Meaning, I've heard you say, this isn't just for people who want movies. It's for people that want a better world.
Yeah, that's right. It's rooted in the idea that until the Industrial Revolution came along, we used to sit around at night and watch a campfire, tell stories. And I think that at their best, movies and television are the current evolutionary model of watching a flickering campfire and telling a story.
Now, that sounds like the kind of thing someone who's like done PhD work on the power of cinema and film would say.
Well,
is that because you've done PhD work?
I did PhD work on something else, but
oh, you did?
Yeah,
I told people I have lied about you all day long. I told people that you are the producer of this festival, and I've told people that you have a PhD in film or movie making.
I went to graduate school.
Okay,
was mentored by a really good professor, and I studied people who believe the Pope is the Antichrist. Yeah. That is almost nothing to do.
I see.
This festival. This is a festival of storytelling. Mm-hmm. It takes place in one of the great cinemas of the United States and really the world. It's a theater in Albuquerque called the Chemo Theater. It was built in 1927, and it's been restored, which is wonderful. They haven't changed anything except the projector system and the sound quality. and the screen.
Since when again? When was that?
1927.
Really?
And so it's like the way moviegoing used to be. And we do screen great films. We screen iconic classics that really need to be seen on the big screen. We screen recent overlooked films that didn't get the audience they deserved, and we screen new surprises.
You're saying at this event that we're going to both be at, Movies and Meaning, you're going to do all those things, screening old films, new films.
Yeah, we screen those three kinds of films, but each film is paired with a conversation or a workshop or some kind of exercise, some way of reflecting on the meaning of this story for the world today, all under the auspices or the umbrella of the theme of what we call hope in the dark. And this is a theme that has been inspired by a wonderful activist writer called Rebecca Solnit, who wrote a book called Hope in the Dark, which is about what we're not seeing when we allow ourselves to be dominated by what you might call bad news or fearful news or divisive news. And I mean, hell, this is a moment for that theme.
Now, is she going to be at this event?
No, she's not. We did invite her, but she wasn't able to come. However, Alice Walker, who wrote the Color Purple,
another good book.
Another good book. You might say a relatively good book. Yeah. One of the great masterpieces of American literature, and actually this really intrigued me. One of the 5 most reread books in American literature. One of the 5 books that is most read more than once by readers. Really? It's really a beloved book, and of course, it was made into an extraordinary film by Steven Spielberg in 1985.
Is he going to be there?
They're going to be. Let's just say there's going to be many surprises at this festival. He's very welcome.
I'm kidding around. But Alice actually is going to be there, and
Alice Walker is going to come. And Alice Walker is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and a writer of exquisite beauty and a courageous activist for positive social change and for the common good. And it's truly an honor to have her come and be part of this. And what we want to do at this festival is more than just the call and response of screening and then a Q&A afterwards. I find Q&A sessions after films or performances often, because they're happening immediately in the moment, the questions don't tend to be the deepest questions, and the answers tend to be fairly superficial. Yeah, what gave you the idea for this, or what was it like to meet so and so, or how did you feel when you won that award? We do something different. First of all, the guests who come tend to be there for the whole festival, so there's an opportunity to interact with them. There's no red carpet, or if there is, everybody gets to walk on it. We attempt to kind of collapse those hierarchies that often exist between celebrities and the rest of us. And the second thing is we do something more than just those kind of analytical question and answer sessions. There are going to be practical experiences in learning how to embody hope at this moment, in learning how to tell the story in a way that can transcend the rather apocalyptic narrative that's in the air at the moment, the crisis narrative that's in the air. We don't want to deny anything that's real, but I've been thinking a lot lately, if the truth sets you free, and that seems like a good thought.
It would be great if that was true, yes.
It would be really good if we committed ourselves to trying to find out what the truth is, and then to only telling that. And if we don't know what the truth is, it would probably do us all a lot of good if we started saying, I don't know the answer to that, or I don't actually know I don't know that Western civilization is going to collapse tomorrow. I don't know that Donald Trump is consciously committed to spreading evil. My sense is he's more incompetent and broken, and damage will be done by default. But look at the unprecedented outpouring of positive energy toward the common good that's happened since the election. We've never seen anything like this. We've never seen millions of people march led by women. Yeah. Ever. Never. We've never seen people wear safety pins problematic and questionable as the value of safety pins are. But we've never seen people wear a symbol in massive numbers because they want to say, I want to protect vulnerable people.
Yes. Okay. There you go. I was going to say there's been lots of large crowds of people that have worn symbols that have made statements, but you're right on that one.
But not to say I'm willing to put myself out to help someone who's vulnerable. We've never seen that before.
That's beautiful too. And it strikes me, this theme, hope in the dark, coming from the book. I heard an interview recently with that author. The book is that particular book has become a bit of a favorite right now.
Yes.
And if I heard her right and hearing you right, the argument in Hope in the Dark, she says, it's not that I'm an optimist. It's that by the dark, what I mean is the future is not yet settled. So the black box doesn't mean we know, it doesn't mean there's good or bad in there. It means it's not yet decided what it's going to be. And so you can have hope because it's not all settled yet. So what kind of world do we want?
Not necessarily bleak.
It's like dark matter or something. It's unknown.
And actually, I heard Rebecca Solnit takes this phrase from Virginia Woolf, I believe, who in 1915, just at the start of the First World War, I believe she wrote the phrase, "The future is dark." She did not mean the future is bad.
Yes.
She meant we can't see the future.
Can't see it yet, yeah.
And when we look at the past and get some perspective on it, I don't know about you, Doug, but I remember in the early to mid 90s in Belfast, I was just starting to go to college, and there would often be posters, like fly posters on lampposts, inviting people to the Belfast chapter of the East Timor Solidarity Campaign movement, and you would see this almost once a month. Solidarity with the East Timorese people who were under the oppressive regime being enacted by Indonesia, and had been since 1975. There'd been a near genocide. When was the last time you heard anybody talk about East Timor's need for independence?
Actually, when you even said the East Timorese, I wasn't even thinking about the country of East Timor. So that tells you how long ago. Well, I just didn't know what it took me a minute to catch up to what that phrase was. Like, it didn't strike me as a phrase I would even know.
Because independence was achieved, and there is no need for an East Timor solidarity campaign anymore. What there is a need for perhaps a truth and reconciliation process and a healing process. There's no need for the kind of activity, the kind of pressure on Northern Ireland to have a peace process, because it has one. And because a peace agreement was signed 19 years ago. For the duration of my childhood, we thought that the future was bleak. We didn't realize that it was actually just dark.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going to happen. And somebody said to me in April of 1994 that he'd heard from an insider, one of these insiders who thinks they know things, that there was going to be peace within 6 months in Northern Ireland. And I rolled my eyes and said, there's no way that's true. And it turned out he was wrong, because there was peace in 4 months. And this is not to be, unquestioning about the nature of the challenges that face us. It is to invite a more rounded perspective. I'm not sure that it's a question of whether the glass is half full or the glass is half empty, so much as stop thinking that life is a glass. The glass is broken. Life's much, much bigger than can be contained in one glass. There are some challenges. They are frightening. There are people suffering. But we never before in human history have seen so many people look at their unearned privilege and ask, what are my responsibilities to people who don't have the privilege that I have? It's never happened before. It's not going to roll back.
I was looking on the website, moviesandmeaning.com.
Oh, we're talking about the festival.
Where people can, but it ties into, because maybe you wrote the sentence on the website, because it's sort of what you're getting at. A little bit on the website says, and it's in a larger font than some of the other words. So that tells me that it's really important. Movies and Meaning is more than a film festival or a conference or a retreat.
Yeah.
It's a dream space. a laboratory for a more beautiful world. That's a great phrase. It sounds very Gareth, so I appreciate it a lot and like it. And what I find intriguing is that you truly believe in your own life and in the structures that you've seen in the world, that the stories we tell and the dreams that we have and that we articulate and that we tell through multiple mode, they actually create the world that's going to be. So when you say a line like, it's a dream space, a laboratory for a more beautiful world, that's not just sort of inspirational, it strikes me from your perspective. That's tactic almost, right? Like,
yeah,
like do the dreaming and tell yourself and tell others a new story so that your story starts to affect and inflict and nurture people so that a new world actually happens.
Well, I think that's just naming reality. It's what we're all doing already. We're just listening to bad stories. Right? It's already what we do. The story I tell myself about my relationship with the mailman who just delivered mail a few minutes ago. Our relationship is a story I'm telling and that he's telling. And the same goes for my relationship with all forms of power, with what I think is important. In life, with the things I want to emphasize, with the things that I'm frightened by. Yeah. It's all a story. It's always been a story. I would go as far to say that the story we tell about our reality might actually be as important as the reality itself. There might actually be no difference between the two things. And I'm not saying this from a place of...
Donald Trump says that too, that same thing, but go on.
Yeah, well, and that's why you need accountability among people who are on a journey toward emotional maturity.
Yeah.
And that's, the task of leadership is to help people become more emotionally mature. And Donald Trump just hasn't been mentored. I mean,
Have you invited him, by the way? Have you invited him to come out?
I've invited Donald Trump. I officially invite Donald Trump to consider attending our festival and to behave respectfully if he's there.
Yes.
Because there may be some people who are nervous of his presence and I don't want to create anxiety.
That's right.
So,
I'm hoping he's busy. He's got things to do. I'm hoping he actually says to himself.
It's really interesting. If you go back and watch, you ever see Gremlins 2?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So I was watching it on a plane a few weeks ago. The bad guy in Gremlins 2, do you remember who the bad guy in Gremlins 2 is?
They've blurred together.
The bad guy in Gremlins 2 is a New York property developer who builds these enormous buildings and wants to destroy Chinatown and make it into, like a theme park. The name of that character is Daniel Clamp. And the logo outside his headquarters, which I believe is called Clamp Tower, is a big metal letter C, literally clamping planet Earth and crushing it. This film was made in 1991.
Yes.
So we're not going to be screening Gremlins 2.
So this event is if I'm imagining there's some people that I hope come to this event. And I'm talking to you, Brandon Vance, that are very familiar with screenings, films, film etiquette. Then there's a whole bunch of people that I hope are coming to this. And I'm talking to you, Rustin Comer, that I don't think have been to film festivals per se, or maybe they hear about them. And anytime someone is starting to move into a new lane of traffic that they haven't been in before, it can be a little anxiety producing, right? So they're like, "Oh, this thing is at a theater, and there's going to be these screenings, and I don't know what I'm going to say." How much do you think people need to know about the ins and outs to get this? And for those who are quite advanced in it, can they get it too? Like, talk a little bit, having done 2 of these already and knowing what's coming into this one, on just the content of it. What should people expect? A dream space that is a laboratory for a more beautiful world, from April 27th to April 30th of 2017 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What's that experience going to feel like for them and be like?
Well, the theater is a very special place, but it's also a very relaxed place, and it's a very informal place. And there's nothing like a dress code, or there's no rules. You don't need to have any special knowledge. You just need to be someone who's interested in storytelling. If you're the kind of person who when somebody bounces a balloon in your direction, you like to bounce it back, you'll probably do just fine.
What about those people I was referring to who tend to like to pop the balloon when it comes over to them because they don't want people to have fun?
Then
room for those guys? Hey, okay, so
the Hippocratic Oath: first, do no harm. The balloon may burst on its own accord. We do invite this. This needs to be a safe space for balloons.
Church leaders are people that I hope come to this, because I think that church leaders, I think the industry that I find myself in, which is leading churches and being a part of spiritual and religious conversations around the country, we really need help in thinking about and telling stories differently and telling new stories, sort of both of those things, right? Saying something new and saying it in new ways, or saying something in new ways that cause you to say something new. Can you give a little pitch and push for people who find themselves in that sector, in that industry? So maybe they're Christian pastors or they're rabbis, or they have other spiritual communities.
There's this really big burden that's falling on leaders right now, which is how to contain the anxiety and the genuine sense of threat and the real danger that some people feel and are experiencing, and how to do that without being overcome by it yourself. So the first reason that I would invite people in leadership to come to this festival is just to have a good weekend and enjoy yourself and connect with other people who are trying to tune into this same flow of there's got to be something more than the fight or flight response. There's got to be something more than, oh my God, it's over, and we're on a sinking ship, and can we just bucket out another bucket of water and keep the ship afloat for a little while longer? So come and enjoy yourselves and meet like-minded people. The second thing is, Alice Walker said to me when we invited her that this is precisely...
That's something you just love to be able to say, isn't it? Pulitzer Prize winner Alice Walker said to me when we were chatting.
She's a wonderful, wise person, and she said, this is precisely what we need to be doing, is alongside our activism to challenge and oppose, and as Mark Rylance said at the Oscars, to oppose without hatred. We need to be fortifying ourselves, filling ourselves up, renewing ourselves with love, with joy, with levity, and with knowledge. And there's a knowledge base that's really intriguing. You know, we're hearing a lot about fake news and alternative facts at the moment. And one of the problems of postmodernism is that it's created a skepticism for the very idea of a fact, and the very idea of there being a truth. And I think if you step back from the story, the big story, you'll find that, good example, 85% of the adult population on the planet, 85% adult literacy worldwide. 50 years ago, I believe it was less than 50%.
Right, it's amazing.
You will find that that the arc of what's happening to violence rates in the US over the last 50 years is downward. There's been an uptick in the last couple of years, and every killing is a universe to the person who's suffering and the loved ones that are suffering. I'm not talking about individual stories. I'm talking about the general arc is that violence is reducing. The general arc is that women are being empowered. The general arc is that human rights are evolving everywhere. And the myopia of the present causes us to notice only the spectacular thing that's going wrong right in front of our faces, or the thing that's directly personally affecting us. This whole festival is about transcending some of that myopia and telling a bigger story and empowering people to come home and say, actually, it's really nowhere bad as you think it is in the places where you think it's bad. The job of people of privilege is to exercise that privilege with responsibility to protect the vulnerable. And the job of everyone in the place where you don't have privilege is to learn to ask for help. And to bring that kind of full circle back into a more cinema context, I think the mistake that happened at the end of the Academy Awards on Sunday night was brilliant in a lot of ways. First of all, it was fantastic drama to watch it unfold. How rare it is to see a totally unscripted moment take place, and one in which nobody is harmed, right?
Yeah.
My husband and I were watching this in a movie theater with about 100 other people, and there was this palpable sense of excitement going on whenever it all unfolded. Second thing, and the more important thing, I think, is vulnerability in public is one of the things that ends war. Particularly men being invited to be vulnerable in public is one of the things that ends war. Certainty that you're right is one of the things that promotes war. And what happened at the end of that show, after an entire evening of people saying things like "oppose without hatred," women show us this better than men do, and never mind the fact that the film that won is a film about masculinity and men asking each other for help. Men who would
Moonlight's the movie.
As thugs,
unbelievable.
Right? This is all amazing, and what we end with is these people we've put on a pedestal, celebrities, show their vulnerability, and it turns out okay.
Yeah, right. Right.
Everybody feels
the world didn't crack because Warren Beatty
Everyone feels
read the wrong words.
Yeah, toward Jordan Horowitz, the La La Land producer, who as soon as he realized there'd been a mistake, so graciously said, "Come on up. I'm so delighted." And the next day,
I thought you should have won too. You sort of could read it. Yeah.
He gave an interview the next day and said, "I don't want the story to be about the envelope mistake. I want the story to be about how a $1.5 million film about gay African American life was named Best Picture."
I heard an interview with a woman who was the first African American on whatever the voting crew is of the Oscars, and an English BBC interviewer said to her, it must have been unthinkable that a film with this content, gay men, black gay men coming to understand themselves, asking for help each other, in a love story, that gay black men love story, needing help, would have won the Academy Award. And she said a couple of sentences to sort of honor his question, and then pivoted it and said, "I don't think it was unthinkable. I thought it was inevitable. And it's good to know that we finally reached that day of the inevitability." And that seems to be sort of what you're getting at too, right? Like there are some futures, and we can make them and shape them as we want. And if you see an inevitability of how one's going to go, meaning up with other people and the film sort of world. Now I would ask you, I haven't seen The Color Purple in a long time, like a really long time, like since I think before Oprah Winfrey was famous.
Wow.
Because I haven't watched it multiple times. Maybe you have, but I think my memory of it was a heavy movie. I don't want to say, it was traumatizing, but it was a heavy movie, really tough topics, done in sort of an exquisite way. There's a lot of people for whom hopeful movies, A More Beautiful World We Can Imagine, doesn't feel like it goes with those kinds of movies. You know what I'm getting at? Right? Like it's heavier movie, The Color Purple, than Moonlight. And Moonlight there was a lot going on in there for a lot of us, especially for men. I think some of us saw it more than once. And it was a powerful movie. But boy, The Color Purple had a kind of, I don't know.
What I love about The Color Purple is it tells the truth about violence. And it tells the truth about resilience. And it allows its character to humanize herself in the face of massive oppression, and it does not dehumanize her oppressor.
Wow.
It allows her oppressor to even have the possibility of redemption while maintaining a boundary between her and him. It's a very radical idea.
Wow. The
reason that I think it belongs in a festival that's about telling a more beautiful story is I think there's at least 4 things you can do with story.
People like numbers, so I will count them on my fingers.
There's thousands of things you can do with stories.
And by the way, I start with my forefinger and not my thumb. Okay. I think that divides the world into 2 very important groups. One, two people, or 1, 2, 3. But anyway, I will start with my finger.
It's almost unspeakably important what finger you start with. So
some things in my life are that way.
Within this category, I think you can lament. And I think that you must lament the suffering in the world, and you must find healthy ways to grieve.
Nice.
And I think that's true at an individual level and at a national and a global level. I think it's one of the reasons that the United States, it's one of the pieces of work to be done in the post 9/11 era is to truly lament the wound of 9/11. To truly tend to the grief and the horror of what happened.
And the movie apparatus, the whole thing, sitting in the dark, a group of people, a screen bigger than you, sound louder than you normally experience, all creates the safe context for people where they will cry at a movie, right?
Exactly.
Like people that will
and sometimes
feel
all you
that
need to
at
do
a theater.
is witness the story. You maybe don't even need to talk about it. So I think there's healthy lament and grief work to be done. But I think that's about 15% of a healthy life, right?
Oh.
I think that's another number for you.
I like these numbers.
I think most people either do no healthy lamenting at all, or they're completely overwhelmed by it.
Or you do like to the religious season, where now we're in a season of lament, and it's like all lament for 40 days.
Or you manifest your lament by not eating pizza.
Yeah,
and that could be very meaningful for some people. Anyway, lament. The other three are to educate, inspire, and celebrate. And
educate
bit is
inspire,
about
and celebrate.
This truth piece. If the truth sets you free, it's useful to devote some attention to figuring out what the truth actually is.
Yeah.
And stories help us with that. And interpreting those stories in community is the only way we can apprehend how true they are. What are they? Inspire. It's obvious. There are films that inspire us, and if they inspire us toward the common good.
And there's a lot of people who only want to see films in that category, aren't there? Like they'll just say, I don't have a lot of time, I don't have a lot of money. If I'm going to go to a movie, film, as some people like to call it, if you go to a film, I want to make sure it like takes me out of my world and sort of inspire, that whole thing, right? That's a very common kind of movie film.
And that's okay. It's the same as, there are people who are obsessed with sports and they love their sports team and they follow their sports team everywhere. And there's people who'll watch one game a year, and there's people who just are aware that it exists. Yes. I don't particularly care whether you do this with movies or books or journalism or music or sport or whatever it happens to be. Religion. I do think a healthy human life includes a healthy proportion of lament, a healthy proportion of education, a healthy proportion of inspiration, and a healthy proportion of celebration. And the celebration piece is something you can usually only do in community. It's what we call parties. It's what we call festivals. And it what leads me to return to this idea of a laboratory for the way life could be. Again, until the Industrial Revolution, most humans participated in some form of festival once every 3 months. Once every season, you had the winter solstice, you had a spring festival, you had a summer solstice, you had coming into the harvest. And I think part of the reason humans did that was, and it would last a week or 2 weeks. The village, 6 neighboring villages would travel together and have their celebration, and they'd share what they have in common. Yeah. I go to the Greenbelt Festival in the UK every year, and I remember having a conversation 12 or 15 years ago with a friend a week or so after Greenbelt, and we were both feeling so depressed. And my friend Michael said to me, it's just like the Greenbelt experience is disappearing into a black hole. And I'm back in ordinary life.
Yes, right.
And I have to wait another 51 weeks until we go and get to do life together again. Well, I imagine part of the reason pre-industrial people had a festival every 3 months was because if you did it every 3 months, there wasn't enough time for it to disappear down the black hole. You'd be like, okay, I had a great experience. I'm kind of tired, and I'll see you in 10 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And we can create these festive spaces without leaving our hometowns. And things like Movies and Meaning are like a once a year special occasion. What happens is, even in a theater, it sometimes happens more easily at an open air festival like the Wild Goose Festival that both of us have been involved in. But even in a theater, if you're there for 4 days, the corrosive barriers between people that usually exist in the industrialized world start to dissolve. If you see someone who you haven't met
the
before,
industrial age dilemma.
Pardon me?
You've solved the industrial age dilemma.
Have more festivals. If you see someone 6 times a day, your faces start to become warmer to each other.
That's right.
And we do that thing that I know a lot of people resist and don't like at the start, which is we invite people to go and say hello to someone they don't know. And
is there social pressure if you don't do it?
I
love it. I do it to strangers anyway. So
nobody's coerced, because the truth is, all of us could respond to that invitation simply by talking to ourselves. If you're asked to go and talk to someone you don't know, there's loads of things about me.
Oh boy, that's clever as they come. You could use that one. You could use that one.
You need to sit on your own.
If you really want to meet a stranger, talk to yourself.
Talk to yourself.
If you want to know the most important stranger in your life, it's that you keep at bay, which is a bit of a truism, right? Like, people do travel. I'm hoping that people will get on airplanes and travel to Albuquerque at the end of
unless they live in Santa Fe, in which case I hope that they'll
you know what, that is a good point.
They'll travel by horse and cart.
Yeah,
I hope they travel by horse and cart,
and that they're going to go to an other place, right? And we all know that feeling that, like Wheels Up, you sort of put a persona on. Right, so you get in an airplane and you start flying and you become a different person. Monday, Shelley and I are going on a vacation to Mexico, and you just sort of put on your vacation-y sense of yourself. Or if you're traveling for work, you're putting on that work sense. Or if you're traveling, and it does really open a little space, doesn't it? It's sort of the way that a character allows you to in a film or in a book or in a television show, lets you see something into yourself. There's something about this pilgrimage where when you go. You do leave behind sort of the restraints and the rules of your other life, right? In a really significant way. So
and you get invited to consider what's one thing you want to change about that life when you go back.
When you go back,
what do you want to take with you that came out of here and that's life giving?
So Gareth, let's push some details on people who are now adequately convinced that if possible, they would spend April 27th through the 30th in Albuquerque. Why Albuquerque? I'm sure people have said right now, is this one of those things that you do when you're starting a film festival? You find a quaint yet obscure place in order to have it so that it sets you apart as someone who's cooler than the people who've never been to Albuquerque?
No, it was pure serendipity. Our friend and one of our inspirations, Father Richard Rohr, lives in Albuquerque. Doesn't travel a lot, and he was our guest at the first 2 of these festivals, and so it made sense to do it there. And then we found this amazing theater.
Great.
That's why we're in Albuquerque.
Well, I'll tell you, it's in addition to you and the festival itself, it's one of the reasons I'm excited to go. I find Albuquerque and Santa Fe, that whole area, to be. Yeah. I mean, it's a little, words for itself is that it's enchanted. I think that's an understatement.
You ever been to Bandelier National Monument?
No. Huh.
I think it's between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. I went there a couple of years ago. Brian and I went there a couple of years ago in the winter, and it may be the most miraculously beautiful place I've been to in the United States.
So if people are feeling like, I don't know, that they live in parts of the country where, winter is a tough visual experience for some people, depending on where they live. Man, April in Albuquerque, end of April in Albuquerque is spectacular. It's more than scenes from Breaking Bad. What you experience,
and sometimes it's even less than scenes in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad doesn't have to have anything to do with it. I do want to mention also that 2 of our other guests, that are coming in addition to Alice Walker, Malidoma Somé, who is a West African indigenous initiated elder of the Dagara tribe. And for anybody out there who doesn't follow the fortunes of the Dagara tribe, I'll say this: Elder Malidoma, who now lives in the United States, is one of the most profound teachers I've ever learned from. It is his calling in life to reintroduce industrialized Westerners to indigenous ritual for learning how to be human. And he's a friend of Alice Walker's, and they're going to be collaborating on doing this kind of celebration around the color purple. I had the chance to participate in a workshop with Malidoma that would be impossible to describe in a way that would make sense, other than to say I saw him do things that I've never seen in Western cultural form before, that could be radically life transforming to people who are open to moving beyond the kind of clinical way we think about our lives in the West. And our other guest is the great, courageous, delightful Syrian-American Muslim poet Mona Haydar, who some people are familiar with because she started the Ask a Muslim movement in Boston a couple of years ago, when somebody basically verbally accosted her in the street and blamed her for terrorism. And she decided to, with her husband, set up a little stand on a Saturday morning in Boston, give away free donuts and coffee. And she would stand there, and there's a sign that just said, "Talk to a Muslim." Anybody could come and talk. She's one of the great bridge builders of our time. And we're delighted to have her with us.
So in addition to film that people will be watching and screening, they'll be in workshops or interacting with these folks?
There'll be speakers, there'll be on-stage conversations. There will be optional small group activities that happen over meal times. And I do stress optional. That means they're an option. You don't have to do it if it's not your thing. We certainly encourage it. There'll be at least one party on one of the nights. And we haven't publicized the entire schedule yet. But I can tell you that it looks like there's going to be at least 2, possibly 3 new films, which have not been seen very much, if at all. And they're all amazing films, different tones. One of them's one of those really inspirational, life-affirming.
Someone wins a race.
Happy films.
Someone overcomes an obstacle and wins the race at the end. Is that one of those films?
Something like that. Yeah. Another one is just a beautiful reflection on the whole life of a very distinguished figure in American contemporary society. And another is about a snapshot of a moment in recent American history, and the fallout of when you don't tend to the problem while it's actually happening. What can happen if you let a wound fester? That's a good tagline, Movies and Meaning. What can happen when you let a wound fester? Let's not emphasize that one. Someone overcomes an obstacle and wins a race.
That's way better. Yeah, that's instead of the infected wound involves the word pus and leakage.
That's
see. Okay, the whole thing is $189.
At the moment, the next 50 tickets are $189.
That's unbelievable. $189.
The price may go up,
and then you can pick up your own. You pick up your own housing, and you're good on the website to suggest that there's some hostels who like that kind of life. There's all those details, all of that sort of thing.
If you're a full-time student or 25 or under, or maybe if you're under 25, I'm not quite sure exactly. There are big discounts on the
and you make this point, and not everyone does on a public website about an event that says we're serious when we say we don't want money to be a barrier for anyone who wants to attend. Yeah. What if there are some people who they're like, man, this thing is great. I'm glad this is happening. I can't go, but maybe other people could, and they couldn't afford it. Are you open to people chipping in, making it possible for someone else to go?
It's a virtuous circle. The opportunity is there for people to donate to a scholarship fund. Yeah. And if there are people who can't afford the ticket price, just write to us, and we're very open to that conversation.
What if I can't afford the ticket price, but I'm going to fly there and I'm going to stay at the DoubleTree?
So this is an interesting question.
Because I just spent all my money on the airplane ticket and the nice hotel.
Yeah, certainly. One of the delicious things of running a festival is people don't go to the Hilton and say, "Hey, would you discount my room?" Yeah, because I've bought the festival ticket. Yeah, we get the pleasure of having that conversation. We invite people to act with integrity according to their conscience.
Of course.
But we really want to make the event accessible.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
well,
I think
there's
it's great. I hope you're doing it. Any last bits of advice for people? What about those who are like in California and think they want to drive over, or those who are in Denver and want to drive down and they want to wait and they're going to kind of see how it goes? Any urgency in the arena?
two things. First of all, Denver is like only a 6-hour drive away, so very, all your Denver listeners should come. Second thing is get your ticket now for two reasons. One is the price may go up again.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is it really helps us to prepare and to make some decisions sensibly in terms of our budget if we know.
Yeah. Can I put a highlight under that one for you and say, as an event organizer in a lot of cases, sometimes it doesn't matter when people register, and some events it just helps the event organizer. So if you're going to go anyway, some people will say, it's not till the end of April. It's only March, barely even March. I'll just think about that in a couple of weeks. If possible, if you're listening to this now and you're like, you know what, I think I got to talk to somebody and see if my schedule can work out or if I can move the monies around. But once that happens, sort of get in on this and say yes. And
it really helps us.
So, and there's a bunch of networks that are involved in promoting this. I'm part of two of them, the Open Network, part of Convergence, and the Red Letter Christian Network. So people from that world are going to be in. So if that's your stream that you're listening to this, or you know about this because of those streams, you know how this goes. That it's good to help the organizers by saying with your 189, and then book your hotel later, right? And get your travel arranged in a bit, but. Mark that thing on your calendar with a registration booking.
Go to moviesandmeaning.com and you'll find out everything you need to know about it there. And also, if you get the chance, check out the Porch magazine, which is the parent of Movies and Meaning.
Not related to Solomon's Porch, that
only
little church in Minneapolis.
Only
that I'm a part of. But the Porch is talk just for a few minutes here about that thing.
It's the magazine version of everything we've been talking about.
But it's not just for movies, the Porch.
No, not just for movies. It's about stories.
It's about stories.
How do we talk about reality in a way that helps us make our own reality more human? And
I think when you go on the website, it pops up a little window that tells you something about that. Is that right? Is that what pops up? So don't do what I did the 4 times I went on the website and saw that pop-up window. And the first thing I looked for was a little X in the upper right-hand corner and clicked close so I could get onto the thing I wanted to do. That little pop-up on there is a partner or is an umbrella. It's a part of this whole thing. So take a consideration of that in and of itself. And we can talk about that more in another time, I guess, because it deserves a conversation of itself. But getting into the magazine genre is a really, really important thing for people who want to make the world in some new ways. Gareth, I think this is a fantastic event. I'm so glad that my life is allowing me to attend with
me too.
This year. And thanks for doing it. And everybody who's thinking about going, really, join us. And we'd love to have you. Is that good?
Thanks so much.
Is that good, my friend? All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, hang tight here, buddy. I'm just going to stop the recording.